protection mode. There you go.
Still looks good.
There you go. The first time ever. Okay, everyone. So thank you very much for having me. I'm Matt Miller. I'm the CEO for Insicon Cyber. And the topic for today is autonomous pen testing as a service. One thing that I see as both a business owner, but also as a fractional CISO of something that is long overdue in the industry, but also something that is desperately needed to stay on top of the vulnerabilities and threats that we see in our everyday working day. So just a little bit of background on Insicon Cyber. So we've been around now since about 2013. We're a cybersecurity advisory organization that we specialize in board level, executive level strategy advisory services. We also do managed services as well, mainly to complement the advisory strategy work that we do. A lot of customers see the need for an ongoing relationship, both at an advisory and a technical level as well. So our approach is holistic and make sure that we try and educate and implement technical solutions at all layers of the organization. And that's one reason that we have chosen to go and build an autonomous pen testing tool is to provide that sort of ongoing compliance checking as we to enhance our advisory and strategy services, and also to showcase that progress is being made on the technical side at the same time, which I'll get into a little bit later in the pack. So what we see from a board level priority perspective, one thing that we spend a lot of time at Insicon Cyber really getting an understanding of our customers, especially the context of our customers, and make sure that whatever advice and advisory services we provide are contextual in their nature, that we're not there just to provide subjective advice and strategic rhetoric. It's more about understanding where our customers sit within their chosen markets, what type of cyber threats and risks they're exposed to, and how we go about dimensioning and quantifying the solutions and services we offer to those customers. So a lot of our customers, both online retailers, financial institutions, physical security, like they all have different levels of security wants and needs, both from an in-house requirement, but also from regulatory and jurisdictional perspectives as well. And we take a lot of time to really understand that and approach that in a way that those organizations appreciate and value the advice that we give, but it's also done in a way that's very tailored to their needs. What the other part that we align that to best practice. So we're all ISO 27001 practitioners, both implementers and auditors. I'm personally a senior lead auditor, and that then gives us gives us a lens to be able to align our advice to and make sure that it always refers back to best practice, whether that's ISO 27001, whether that's the Essential 8, NIST, or any other best practice that we feel is a good fit for our customers. So you can sort of see the areas that we focus on with our customers at that board level. So business continuity is definitely one that we see a lot of at the moment. Corporate risk, the regulatory and compliance is a changing landscape always, and one thing that we pride ourselves on staying on top of. But the big one for me right now is that supply chain and third-party risk management, and having the ability to really understand those interfaces, those data points, data integration points between our customers and their upstream providers is so important at the moment, and definitely being able to stay across those particular data points, make sure they're continually pen tested and they're not vulnerable to any 0 days or known particular vulnerabilities is extremely important at the moment. So what we see is that those third parties and supply chain providers there's an assumption in a trust model that they're just as good, if not better, in their security posture as the customer themselves, and that's a falsehood. So making sure that that we have the tools in place to make sure that we're constantly monitoring those third parties and upstream providers is just critical at the moment, especially if there's data being shared between organizations. So this is where our autonomous services, especially our autonomous pen testing, comes into play. So that point in time pen test that we've all known and loved for many, many years is exactly that. It's a point in time. It's redundant the day after it's done. Once that report's done, realistically the vulnerabilities continue the day after. And I've been personally very conscious of that for many years. But it's the technology and the tool set that we had available to us until now, until we've chosen technology in Horizon3.ai with their Node Zero technology to be allow us to do that continual pen testing. So look, we all know that systems and infrastructures change on a daily basis, whether that's from adding new technology or changing configurations or just spinning up a new laptop or a new server. We're susceptible to those vulnerabilities all of the time. So that annual pen test is now, in my mind, redundant. It's not something that we should really rely on and rest our laurels on, because it's a redundant approach to an extremely important and very intense process. So the Insicon Cyber regular assessment. So we can look at both external assets, internal assets. We can contextualize that on an ongoing real-time basis. So at the same cost as that annual pen test. So we're not saying that we get rid of pen testers. There is still a need for pen testers to validate a lot of these findings and make sure that they are valid and not false positive. But in saying that, the availability of these tests should always be available to our customers and also upstream providers as well. So being able to implement a service level agreement over that, so that we can then add those findings into an internal operational BAU process for remediation, which is always the problem with a pen test, that you go and find 30,000 findings or defects, and then everyone goes, well, what do we do with that? We don't have the manpower. We don't know what to do. We've got to go through, test it. We've got to put that through change management. We've got to raise a JIRA ticket. Whereas what we've found with the Horizon3.ai's technology, not only does it find the vulnerability, it finds the context of the vulnerability, but it also gives you the remediation steps to remediate that as quickly as possible. So that's the strength of this product and our service, to make sure that we are providing a contextual and remediationable activity on this particular pen test. And over time, we find that those vulnerabilities and defects decrease to a very, very manageable level as we go through these processes and within those service level agreements. So now I'll hand over to Rob from Horizon 3, and he can give you a little bit more of an update on the product itself.
Yep. Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. Rob here, Rob Evans. I'm the channel manager for APJ for Horizon 3. So we're obviously the vendor that underpins Insicon Cyber's managed service around this space. So I thought I'd just take just a couple of slides here to talk about, I guess, why we were created and what the actual issue is as we see it. So I want to talk about two issues, right? And they stem around what people are doing today to really validate their security controls, right? So if you think about, I've bought all these defensive security controls. Now, how do I make sure, today and tomorrow and in 3 months' time, they're actually all working as intended, right? That's the big question. So, there's nothing wrong with vulnerability management, but it's been around for a while, and the issue there is it is tying up operations teams. There's a lot, 50,000 new vulnerabilities every year. And as we all know, just because you scan something and it says that it's vulnerable doesn't actually mean that it's exploitable, right? And the other issue you've got with spending, inordinate amounts of time chasing down CVEs is less than 2% of all the CVEs are actually leveraged by attackers. So you can actually be spending a lot of time in here and not actually necessarily reducing the risk in the lens, with the lens of an attacker as you thought you were, because you really don't have, you get a lot of noise, not much priority, and not really linked to any proven business impact. So if you could advance to the next slide. I'm not sure if I can do it, Matt, so I'll let you do it. Yeah, so then, okay, so that's one thing people are doing. The other thing people are doing, which Matt's already touched on, is manual pen testing, and that's great, right? The human creativity in manual pen testing is fantastic, but you've actually got to get hold of a good pen tester, and then we all know that they're limited by scope and time, right? And it's just cost prohibitive, typically, to cover more than 5% of anyone's environment. So if you consider that pen testing is really your gold standard of testing exploitability, which it should be because you're actually really testing, then the question then becomes, how do you actually scale this? So that's something our founders were grappling with, and said, they worked. Our CEO was the ex-CTO of Splunk, and before that, he was the CIO of GE Capital, and that was something he thought about a lot. I've got this massive environment. I've bought all these defensive tooling. How do I get an attacker's perspective on what I've got to make sure it's tuned correctly, right? And that's where sort of he came up with the idea of creating an offensive security platform, which is our platform, and using autonomous pen testing to basically provide that scope and frequency. Next slide, Matt. Yep. So now obviously with our platform and then paired with a capable partner like Insicon, we can now, provide that full visibility. We can do it on a much more frequent basis. Typically, we find that monthly is a good cadence that that resonates with a lot of people. We can do it. You can do it more frequently than that, but obviously, you need time to remediate the findings, as Matt says, because no point just providing pen test reports without that wrapper around advisory and remediation that goes with it, because otherwise you're just going to keep on showing the same issues popping up again and again. So really what we're trying to get customers towards is a find, fix, verify continuous improvement loop, right? So the tool helps find it. Insicon and yourselves obviously would then fix that, and then you can go back into the tool and do a one-click verify and we'll do a very detailed pen test on just the weakness that you've now remediated, and that will verify that it's no longer exploitable, right? So that's obviously measured over time, right? So then you've got a real proof that you're actually lowering your risk in your environment, and obviously shortening those exposure windows, right? And then you've got actual proof to go back to the board and the CFO to say, hey, I am actually getting ROI out of my defensive security controls, and here's the proof, right? Next slide, Matt. So I'll probably hand it back to you at this point, Matt. But yeah, I mean the summary is sort of pretty clear on the table here, right? So traditional sort of approach for security validation is normally a mixture between vulnerability scanning and traditional pen testing. Happy if anyone wants to call out and say they're doing something else aside from these two in terms of validating their existing controls. And now we're moving to a world where the technologies exists now that we can do this, use autonomous pen testing, and do this on a much more frequent basis, right? And providing a much more continuous view for you. Yep, over to you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. And I think this is a really good point to sort of say that, overlaying SLAs with this as well, that then allows us to dovetail into processes like patch management. We can then integrate into service, the SDLC, into your CI/CD pipelines, which I think it definitely gets overlooked when you're doing that sort of singular annual pen test, when all the technical support staff and developers get overwhelmed with the amount of defects that stops them from going into production. At least this way we can do that. We can implement these defects into more of an agile in a sprint sort of methodology, opposed to a big bang waterfall, stop everything you're doing and fix all these problems that you've had for the last 12 months. It definitely, the traditional pen testing, like I say, there's a need for it. There's validation. There's absolutely a need for it. However, the cadence of it has always been the problem that I've seen, both running large AppSec teams, large pen testing teams, and development teams. That always is pushback there. Whereas this, we can get into a cadence that allows us to be continuous, to be continuous in the nature of the finding and the remediation, which is, it's bite-sized pieces, not one big whale, which is, I find to be a lot more consumable for the technical teams. And again, we can dovetail that into operational cadences with patch management and make sure that we're staying on top of these defects as and when we find them, not 12 months later. So just from an Insicon Cyber managed autonomous pen testing. So one thing that I really like about this product and the service that we offer is that we can prove that the exploitation. It's not hearsay. It's not subjective. It's not just because the tool says that it's a critical means it's a critical. Contextually, we get much more proof of the vulnerability and its categorization. It's really important that we're not, chasing shadows here. We also get complete environment coverage, both internal and external. So it's not just a series of IP addresses. We find attack vectors, we find attack paths, and we can look at that both from an internal and an external perspective. And the frequency can be done monthly, it can be done quarterly, it can be done whatever fits into the customer's internal operational cadences. And I think that's really important. And that's definitely something that we've spent a lot of time, posticulating about, making sure that that we're not overcooking this, but we're definitely not, undercooking it either. So that SLA regime is critical for this service. And the automation of it. So, being able to, from a click of a button, not only run a pen test, but also get all the facts of the exploit, what actual code was run, what CLI was run in order to get to that point of exploitation, so that we have the evidence to showcase the actual exploit itself. And that then makes for good reading, opposed to subjective subjective reading that we typically see in pen test reports that need to go back and be verified and validated. So the key benefits for this is really that autonomous pen testing, with making sure that we can unify that with our security operations team. So one thing that I really like about Node Zero is that we can integrate that in with our SIEMs, so that we're actually getting that information in, and we can then create detection rules based upon the findings that we find. Look, we've been doing that now with Tenables of the world and whatever else, but this now gives us a lot more visibility and much deeper integrations into the environment. So holistically, we can see this. And then add those findings into our SIEM, and we can respond to that until those particular problems are either remediated or removed from the environment. So, it's again, I think that the one here, proof not possibility. We're actually proving the vulnerability. We're not just sort of talking about it and hoping that it is a critical or a high or a medium. We've actually got proof that we can categorize it accordingly. So that's definitely a really important aspect of this service. So two types of service options that we provide. So the autonomous pen test service, so test and report, and then also, like I say, we can integrate that into our security operations team via our SIEM and via our SOC. So we provide that both in a service. We can also provide this offering in a sort of a once-off pen test type, proof of value, to make sure that what we're saying is true, and also to make sure that we've got the right cadence for the customer as well. So these are the two main ways that we take this product, this service to market, and make sure that it integrates in with our customers' needs and wants. So our pricing model. So again, it's both options are priced on the number of assets and just really that subscription service, but also how often you want this to be run within the environment, and whether you actually want it plumbed into a SIEM and supported by a security operations center. So they're really they're the sort of the comprehensive view of how we go to market with this particular service, and we spend a lot of time making sure that it integrates into our customers' environment as well as possible, and it only gets better the more times that you do it as well. So it's personally, I think it's a great service, and one that I've deployed many times in a number of our customers. So that's it for me. I've spoken enough. I know I've gone 1 minute over, so thank you very much for your time, and thanks, Rob, for your additions as well. So I'll hand back to Jonathan.
Okay, cool. So I have